Okay, welcome back to the shop, and it is going to be a slightly different one today because my wife is not here, so that's why I have to move around quickly to start the computer and then come back around over here. So, hey, we even have someone in the chat already. Rachel's Hobbies, good to have you here. So, tonight, if you want to connect with me, you're going to have to put something on there so I can see it ahead of time. I'm trying to keep a look at the chat, but my wife is not going to be able to tell me about that. Let's dive into the thing. We're actually going to be finishing the turning saw and doing some carving and a little bit of detail work, some scroll work up here, and a little bit of weaving on here. And I may actually get to putting on the boiled insulator, although I might do that a little bit later or a different time. Depends on how far we get into the carving. But it will basically be done, and this should be the last video on it. Next week, we're actually going to be doing, hopefully, if everything comes together, doing a sunrise dovetail joint. So showing that in 1 hour and actually going through all the process of that. So I have been having a lot of fun here in the shop. Actually, today I got a chance to work on the table. It's coming together finally. So hopefully that video will be coming out here soon. Let's actually look at some of the upcoming events and things I have going on. This weekend, my wife and I are actually going out to Ragnar, a race up in northern Wisconsin. So that should be fun. Let's see. Oh yes, not this weekend, but next weekend is the Midwest Tool Collectors National Meet in Iowa. This is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and we will be doing a meetup. Let's see, this is on Thursday the 27th at 5 to 6:30 p.m. And I'll actually be there with the entire family. My wife, my 3 kids, we're all going to be at the national event, and so I am looking forward to that. So if anyone has any problems with the feed, please let me know in the live chat. I'll try and keep an eye on that and make sure that everything is okay, but it looks like everything is clicking. Hopefully, cross your fingers. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the Midwest Tool Collectors National Meet in 2 weeks. And the entire family will be there, so you'll get to meet my wife, you'll get to meet my kids, and yeah, we'll have some fun. Let's see, and then I'm still waiting on the final information, but on October 20th, there is a Midwest Tool Collectors meet in Texas. And it is in Austin, Texas, just outside of Austin. And I'm also going to be teaching a dovetail class in that, so I'm hoping to get all that information here very soon, but I'm waiting on that. So, yeah, those are the fun things coming up. Oh, and also this last week, I was featured on the Makers Monday. So if you want to look that up, if you search for Makers Monday on YouTube, you can see a little thing on there. It was about a 3-minute long video with the background of who I am and what I do. It's kind of a fun one, but I like his channel. He's got a lot of interesting things coming up, and he'll probably be a channel growing fairly quickly here soon, so definitely worth checking out. Enough talking. Let's get on to making a turning saw. So let's actually show you what we're going to be doing here today. Switch over to 2 and zoom in a little bit because I got to see some details on this. So we're going to actually be working on making this scroll up in here, and it's kind of like what you would have seen in a violin scroll. How it swirls up and around. And then we're also going to be doing a little Celtic Trinity down here, and so I'm going to be showing how to freehand draw and carve that. And then I also want to do a little weave that kind of goes through the beam and across here. Just a tiny little bit in here. I'm playing with some ideas of how to make this look a little bit better, but right now I want to show you what this is. So just some simple line drawing. This is the type of thing that anyone can do. It really only takes a couple minutes. And let's see where this is. Yeah, my wife is not here today. Sorry about that. She is actually at a nursing conference, so you get to mess with just me. So if anyone has a question or anything you want me to note, please put it up on the chat, but then put some big bright dot or something ahead of time, and I'll be able to look at it and try and fit in those questions. But we're going to have some fun. So let's actually do some carving on this. First thing I want to do is the little Celtic Trinity in the bottom of one of these. So let's flip back over to this one and give you guys a little bit better view of what I want to do on that. So I'm going to use my hold fast to lock this down. Makes it a little bit easier for working with it. Just a quick tap, and we're ready to work on this one. Although not this one because it's got an angle on it. So I'm going to move it over. Tap. Now for the Celtic Trinity here, it's basically a triangle, and it's a fairly easy little thing to draw. You just have to think about a couple different points. Now I have this stencil with circles. You could also go and find something that is the right circle. I'm just going to try and find a circle that fits inside of this. And so it's looking like that's going to be the 7/8 circle. And then I want to line it up on here, and I'm going to draw that circle. And then I want the first point to be up here at the top. So I'm just going to draw an arrow in here. And then I need to draw 2 more points. And so if I go halfway between this quarter, and then go up a little ways more, that'll be 1 point. And they don't have to be terribly precise. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. And that is basically 3 points of a triangle. The next thing I want to do is actually come in with a smaller circle. So I had the 7/8 on there. I'm going to go 2 sizes down, 3/4. Let's see, yeah, 3/4 looks about right. And I want to match up point 1 and point 2. Yeah. And I'm going to draw a curve in there. And then I'm going to go to the next 2 points and do a little curve in there. And then go on to those 2 points and do a little curve in there. And then that gives me my little trinity inside the circle. A really simple thing to draw. Now the problem with doing something this small and just doing simple lines is it's hard to make it into a weave. On this one, I tried actually weaving it, but I found it was actually better just because I'm doing lines to let them all go through rather than letting them weave in and out. It just makes it a little bit simpler. So I'm going to actually start here at the point and go around. And I'm just using a small little V tool. And this is a number 12 by Pfeffel. Pfeffel, I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm sure someone German here would be able to tell me. And I'm just going to work it around. And this is actually fairly hard to do freehand like this, because it takes a lot of control. Any small slip and you'll run right past and nick something out you don't want to do. And so I'm just going to take 2 little passes here. Don't take off too much, don't put much pressure behind it. If you're having problems with doing that freehand control, then what I like to do is grab a small mallet, and with the mallet you can tap it. And the tapping gives you far more control because you can adjust in between each small little tap. And there's no fear of flying through too far and going past. So there's one. Do this one. So there's the basic of the Trinity, and I just want to do the circle. Now circles are some of the hardest things to do because if you are out of alignment in any small amount, it shows up. I'm just going to follow this line and do a small little scratch pattern. And if you really think that this is too much for you, in 99% of the cases you're wrong. I've taught little kids how to do this in 5 or 6 minutes, and as long as you can follow a line with a pencil, you can do this work. You don't even have to follow it very well. There we go. What? 1.5, 2 minutes? We've got that little Celtic swirl in it. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me move in a little closer. Oh, loss of signal. Let me see if that helps. There we go. Let's get that back. And down. Where are we at? There we are. So let's do that one more time on the other arm. Just started. Nope, you're not late. My wife isn't here though. Sorry about that. She is at a nursing conference. So we're going to do the same thing here. Start by holding it in place. I'm going to grab my circle gauge, and this one is 7/8. It fits nicely in there. Line it up. Draw my circle all the way around. Oop. Move that over a little bit. And then I'm going to make a mark here at the top. I'm going to come down 1/4 and 1/8, and then I'm going to come back up a little ways, making a third mark there. And I'm going to come up here and make another third mark. And then I'm going to go down 2 whole sizes, which I think is a, what, 3/4? And I'm going to connect 1 to 1 with the arc running into the middle of the circle. I'm going to connect another 2 with the arc running into the circle. And I'm going to connect the last 2. And I can tell that's going to be off a little ways. Let me try adjusting. Yeah, let's move that one over a little bit. If it doesn't look quite right, then redraw it and change it around a little bit. One arc on this is just off a little ways. So I'm just going to erase it and redraw it to something like that. There, now we got our Trinity ready to draw. Yeah, you can actually find a lot of carving chisel, usually like 10 to 15 bucks for decent old ones. They'll usually take a little bit of work. This one is made by Pfeffel. It's a number 12. This is my detailed chisel. It's a fairly tight little chisel, and I like it for this simple working. I actually bought a set for my mother. Well, not actually a set. It was a bunch of individuals that were put together to make a set for her. So a V-tool, a couple gouges, and a skew. With those few, you can do most anything you want. And like I said earlier, you can do this freehand just pushing. I just find it to take a little bit longer because you have to really control what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to slide out and push past. Here, I'll show you what the freehand looks like. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to come around. See, I'm going really, really slowly, trying to make sure, making a really light cut. I'll come in with a slightly heavier cut, because if I push too fast, especially when I go through one line into another, there's a tendency to pop out and run past. Go a little bit heavier here. Now let's do the circle. And we'll have this one done too. I love how quickly these run through. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in there. Just put some big notifier on there so I actually see it. Whether it's a big dot at the beginning or something of that nature. Because I look up every now and then and see if anyone has posted anything. Well, this one isn't terribly pretty, but it'll do. It's one of the fun things with circles. There is no such thing as a perfect circle. Your eye will see any small imperfection. So if you're worried about perfection, don't ever make circles with your carving. So there's that. We did that on both of the ends. So now I've got that on all of the ends of these. Now actually what I want to do is this little weave. So it's basically a Trinity, just like we did before, but then it also swirls past and goes into this. And this is a really, well, it's the exact same thing we just did, but with a little bit more fun. So I'm going to lock this together. Actually, I'm going to put a couple of these together so that I don't have to move this around. Grab another hold fast. Right, let's go over this one. And stick a wedge underneath there. Sticking wedges underneath these where anything will slide out or doesn't have the thickness there to hold it. There. So we're going to do the exact same thing here with a little bit of a Trinity. No, that hold fast isn't going to work. So we're going to have to do this slightly differently. I'll just make sure it doesn't bump around too much. So we're going to find a circle that fits in there. And I'm thinking this 15/16 circle works perfectly. So we're going to draw our circle here. And this time I want the point to be here at the junction. And I'm going to draw another line here, another line here, basically making my triangle. And then I'm going to eyeball the distance from here up to here. I'm going to do that again up to here. And I'm going to create a little X mark here. And then with that in mind, I use the 15/16, so I'm going to come down 2 to 13/16. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before, drawing an arc. Then I'm going to come over here and draw another arc. And then draw the third arc over here to finish off the Trinity. But then I want to actually continue that arc up and over, so I'm actually going to go a little bigger. Up a little bigger than that even. Just until I get a nice flowing shape from point to point. And then move this over. Get that opposite side flowing shape. I'm looking at that, and this is actually looking really fat. In other words, it's too wide. So I'm going to go even bigger in the circle. That will flatten out that arc a good bit. Let's actually go up to this one. And draw it on there. And let's draw this one. Yeah, that's more what I'm looking for. So now that I have those lines in, we can do the same thing again and follow along. Do you know if there will be a meetup next week at Midwest Tool Collectors? Yes, I will have a meetup on Thursday at the Midwest Tool Collectors meet at a, what's the word I'm looking for? Starbucks. There we are. There's a Starbucks nearby. Actually, let me go grab the address of that one. It is at 4801 First Avenue in Cedar Rapids. That will be at 5 o'clock on Thursday. And we'll have the entire family there. So feel free to swing by and say hi. Otherwise, if you're going to be at the meet, feel free to stop in and say hi anytime. I'm actually going to have the entire family, which will be kind of fun. And at this junction, I want to be careful because here I'm going across grain. And at this point, I'm going to go into the grain. And it just takes a slight mindset change there because your curl isn't chipping out, it's now cutting out. Switch around to this side. Do the same thing out here. And then another one this way. Yeah, this camera being in the way, making it hard to carve. So I'm not doing anything special. I'm not doing an over-under. I'm just carving out some really, really simple lines on this. I don't want this to be an overstatement. I'm not looking for anything particularly interesting. And there is our Celtic weave. Once this is pelled together with the string, it'll just be this nice little detail that's extra on there. Yay! We've got quite a few people in here. So if you guys have any questions you'd like me to answer, if you can put a dot on there or something like that so I can see it, that will make it far easier. So I'm going to rotate this around because my wife isn't here, so she can't view them all. So sorry about that. And I'm going to do the same thing one more time on this side. So move those over, make sure I'm still in the camera frame. Oh, that one's bouncing. Oh well. Move down a little bit. There we go. So let's do this again. This should be a fairly simple thing that you've got, that you see now, and you can see how this can repeat fairly quickly and become a different shape altogether very quickly. So if you want to actually continue this weave, you could just continue this weave all the way down and across. But I think that's a little bit too much. I'm looking for a little bit more of a subtle statement. So that's why I'm just doing a simple line. I'm not doing any over-under on it. Corner, corner. Drawing these lines at about thirds so that I have that to go by. Now let's go down 2 sizes, down to 11/16, and let's draw our arcs. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that one's a little off. Let's move that over a little bit. Yeah, that looks better. Just eyeballing it, seeing if anything is out of shape or out of whack. Yeah, that looks better. And then I'm going to go up to this large size again. Oops, I got to create the other dot. Let's put the other dot right there. And I went up to this really large one last time. Let's do that again. So we're going to do a half arc from point to point. And then we're going to do it on the other side. Just a simple little pattern. No signal. Uh-oh. Wonder what happened there. Making sure I'm still feeding. If you guys can see me, please let me know. Apparently, if no one's touching my computer, then it times out. So I've got to fix that. So I don't know if you guys saw that go dead, but my screens all suddenly went dead. Yeah, I could just burn that in, and it would be faster if I just had a burning tool to do that. But I like the look of the wood. It's a little more subtle than the burnt lines. Because I could make a logo engraver, kind of like how I for my logo for stamping things. But this is a little bit more of a hint than a dark line from burning something in. Ooh, that line was a little heavier than I wanted. Oh well. Let's make it match. And so the next thing I want to do is a small scroll carving on the end of this. So sort of like a violin carving, which is going to scare a lot of people. But as I say, it's not hard. It's just depends on how complicated you want to make it. And you can make any simple step really complicated if you want. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and throw them in there. Put like a dot at the front or some other notifier so I can easily see that there's a question. And I'll try and view them. Cool. I'm glad I didn't. My screen apparently went dark. And I wasn't sure if it was the actual feed. Uh-oh. The image is static. Okay, let me go try changing something. Yep, so something happened when it went out. Come back here. Disconnect. 3, 2, 1. Reconnect. Uh-oh, that didn't fix it. So you can probably see me here with my wife. So let's try this. Disconnect. Hey, there we go. Device isn't available. Reconnect. Okay, so the image should come back. Sorry about that. Oh, the fun of not having my wife in the shop. Looking forward to having her back. I don't like it when she's gone. Everything around here goes crazy. So, we've done the little simple weave carving on there. Now I want to do something a little bit more fancy. We're going to actually do these little scrolls on the end that you're commonly seen in violins. And so that'll make it just kind of pretty for when the string wraps around it to connect from point to point. So let's actually take a look at what those look like. Pull this off, draw this down in, and then switch back over to 2. Cool. So here we go. And on this one, you can see here how it's basically a spiral that comes in, and if you view it as a ball in the middle, and then a spiral that works in towards that ball, that's all you're thinking about, and then you're chamfering down into it. So we're going to do that, but on this one. Now one of the things I need to do on this is if I'm going to be working on this end, I don't want it to be rocking like that. So I'm going to get these wedges, basically door shims, and those will hold it in place. So I can put that door shim in there, have the hold fast on here. Hold fast will keep it from moving around on me, and I can do the work I need to do here. There we go. So the first thing I want to do is find out where that little ball is in the middle. And for that little ball, I'm going to do something at 11/64. No, let's go 3/16 or 4.76 millimeters. And I'm going to find a spot in the middle of that and draw my circle. So that's my eye. Now what I want to do is actually spiral out of that. And I want to start here at this little crook and work around, and I want it to get smaller So let's actually measure this. And I want it to connect back here. So I want it to actually come around like this. Only not that high. No, I don't want that much. Let's take that off. That's one of the nice things about a pencil. If you don't like it, you can erase it and come back later. So in this case, well, sorry, we're actually going to start back here, and this is going to come around to here, and then this is just going to come around and connect on the back side here. I want to go any farther with that? No, that's all we need. So I want to actually make these circles just a little bit more circular, so I can use this and find a size that works. Something like that. That'll just make it look a little bit more pretty. Now, the first thing I want to do is outline this and actually know where am I going to be cutting in. So I'm going to start here at this little nook, and I'm going to use the corner of this chisel to lay out and come all the way around this, staying on that line. I'm just going to nick in the corner a little bit all the way around. Until I'm getting here, the radius of this is too big, so I'm actually going to go down a radius size and a smaller skew. And this one will then allow me to just go all the way around that little ball in the middle and create a tiny little thing. Now I want to be very careful. This ball is fragile, and if I push too hard here, I'll snap it off. And where it connects back around, I'm just not going to touch it completely just yet. So now we have a line drawn all the way around. Now if you imagine, we want to come from this line back here and pare down in at an angle. So I'm going to start back here at this line, just pare in a little ways, not putting much pressure on it, because I don't want to break off anything, because I haven't cut down deep enough on my stop cut. I'm just going to gouge out a little bit, going cross grain. And I'm also making sure I'm staying away from this edge, so I'll be starting in a 1/16 or so. I just want to come around. I'm going to create these little leaves, almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Rose petals. Being very careful not to push through and shear off that ball. Just work my way around until I get back in here. And here I'm just going to stop with that one right there. So now I want to get rid of all those rose petals. I can come in with a knife, and I'm going to cut that stop cut that I cut earlier down just a little bit farther. And this will allow me to cut off those rose petals. And some people have a hard time with the knife in that it wants to follow the grain and run away. And so if you're having problems with that, you can just go back here to the gouge and try and find a gouge that matches and cut straight down to create your stop cut. And I usually prefer this, but sometimes I like bringing in the knife. And I do like trying other things, so I think this time I'm going to try this just for the fun of it. Let me get over here. Now I'm getting into that spot where it's too small. So I'm going to grab this other gouge, the D to 1, and cut that around. See if there's any questions so far. Hey James, what's the saw used for? This is a turning saw. So it's basically the hand tool version of a band saw. So any of the work you would have done with a band saw, you use a turning saw for. And you can put different sized blades on it just like you would with a bandsaw. So now we're going to do that exact same step again. Start from out here and work our way in. And we're not taking off any large chunks. We're just making little rose petals. I already have a good chip out here. Oh well. You can see how that's starting to cut down in. Let's keep on going around. It's usually 2 or 3 passes around, each time just taking off a hair more. And I get down to a depth that I like. Not looking for anything really deep or spectacular. It's just here for a little bit of show. You can start to see how that spiral is coming out. Now here I have to be careful. I'll break through that and my chisel will want to jam in there. So I want to slow it down a little bit and take the pressure off and not over push it. So let's come back in, clean out those petals. Ooh, pushed a little hard there. Stick this down in there. I can use this tiny little gouge to clean out this stuff as it gets in the way. Okay, now here's where you start getting into the detail work. And your hand is in the way, sorry about that. And you can start to get really, really picky about how detailed you want this to be. But the main idea is you want to get rid of any of the marks left in the gouge. So the ridges in between, come in and clean out those ridges. And then your next pass you're going to clean out those ridges. And your next pass you're going to clean out those ridges. And each time you come through, you're going to be making a slightly smaller ridge and a slightly smaller ridge, until eventually you get to the point where ridges are just too small. And then you can come in with a small card scraper or sandpaper and clean those out. I don't usually like to bring sandpaper into carving, because once the sandpaper has touched the carving, I don't like to bring the carving tools back to it, as that sand and grit can get caught in there and cause problems for the tools. What types, not brands, do you suggest for a beginner getting? If you get a V-tool and then a selection of gouges with different radiuses and then a skew chisel or even just a carving knife, those few tools you can do 99% of all the carving out there. The gouges are the workhorses. The V-tool creates the lines, and then everything else is a specialty tool. So you don't need all of those crazy things unless you are going to be doing crazy carving. And eventually you'll get into it and you'll be like, oh, I've got to have one of everything. That's just normal. Okay, I'm getting to the point of diminishing returns here, where I'm going to be cleaning out more and more and more, and I'll probably do that a little bit afterwards. Next thing I want to do is actually turn this into a ball. So I'm going to take this gouge, flip it upside down, and I'm going to shear off the corners here, just like carving a donut, if you've ever done that exercise, and turn this into a little ball. Took off a bit too much there. Oh well, such is life. There. Sharpen that up a little bit. And I can spend hours and hours and hours detailing this and bringing this into more and more specific characteristics and exactly what I'm looking for. I want to create a little chamfer here because the cord will be wrapped around here, so I don't want a sharp corner for the cord to snag on. And I also want to create this, carry this chamfer that I created earlier right on over into that. There we go. So there, that is the spiral. I'm going to do it one more time and show you the other side, but that's basically all it is. Really rather simple. So let's do it again on the other side. Let's see if there's any questions. How do you get clean inside corner? Keep resizing very small feathery bits like small chips when two inside planes intersect. I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. If you can repeat that, I don't quite know. Sorry. So let's start this again. We're going to go for that tiny little ball, and last time I used a 13/64, so that worked out pretty well. Let's use that again. Draw that little ball, and then we're going to start here and draw up this way. And then we need this spiral to come around. I'm going to let this one carry around a little bit further this time before it connects back in into there. So a little bit more of a curl in this one than we did in the last one. Does that look good to my eye? That looks pretty good. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, if you want to see the chisels that I'm using, actually on my website, woodbywright.com, I have a section for tools. And under chisels, I actually have all of my carving chisels listed. So if you want to see the exact ones, they're all on there. So let's start this in. Start by creating that stop cut. Just a little bit of the nick of the corner of this all the way around. This is where the fun begins. Life comes together. Let's go on to the smaller one. Carving is just something that is truly enjoyable. And the more you do it, the more you just love it. It becomes easier than you expect once you do more and more of it. But it's always still surprising to you that, wow, I can actually do that. And you don't always expect that you can do it until you do. And it's not going to be perfect. Don't ever expect perfection. I mean, strive for it, push for perfection, but don't expect it. Makes life so much easier and more enjoyable. And that's what this is all about. This is about enjoyment. It's not about creating perfect sculptor carvings. It's about having some fun. So now we got that. Let's come back in with a gouge and start cleaning it out. I'm trying to carve this so that my arm is not in the way, which means I have to carve in very odd manners. Creating that rose petal cut all the way around. Move that out of the way. Back into here. Oh, I'm loving this. So who in the live chat is going to be at the Midwest Tool Collectors National Meet this week, or next week? I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. Quick question about the tool till behind you. Do you wish you had separations between the tools? Yeah, let me flip that over. I don't know if you're talking about like tools separation between the planes and the saws. No, I like everything being compact. The reason I like it all being close is from this position I can touch almost every tool I'm going to need, and with one step I can touch every tool on this wall. And so with barely moving at all, I have all my tools and my working space all in one place. So I don't want to separate them out anymore. And the separation in between, no, I don't have any need to have any separation. I mean, I have little dividers between the planes. The saws, I just have enough space that I can grab a handle and pull it out. So do I need any more space? No. So I hope that answers your question. Let me come back into this. Oh, he responded. So when carving down into the corner at the end of a cut or small curl of wood stays attached that I've come in front. Is there anything to avoid this? Oh, I see what you're saying. So basically what he's saying, let me show you. Let's come over here. So if he carves in here, and we're going to carve down into this tiny little corner back in here, and basically we're creating this little curl, this rose petal, and oh, here's an instance. Down in here, there's this little flap in this corner that isn't coming out. How do you get that out? And the best way is to continue the cut down a little farther. So actually use this and create that stop cut down a little bit more, or to use a marking knife or a carving knife. Come down in and carve that out, and then carve this back until it lifts out. And you get rid of those tiny little pieces. The smaller the pieces, the smaller your cut needs to be. And having control over how deep your cut goes can give you the thing to get back into. And sometimes the angles are very hard to, like on little dovetails. I actually have a dovetail chisel, which is flared out like this, and this allows me to get back into the corners, so I can get those little things in there. So sometimes it's about having the right tool for it. But you can still do it without this. You just have to spend some more time wiggling around getting a bench chisel in there. So I hope that answers your question. But thank you for putting that blue dot there. It allows me to actually see that there's a question coming up. If that didn't answer your question, let me know, and then I'll come back to it in a little bit here. So once I get this carving done, I'm probably going to do a quick Q&A. Those are always fun. Yeah, next week, the live, assuming that I get this done tonight, and I'm happy with the way it is, next week, the live, we're going to do a sunrise dovetail, which is a, well, a lot of people call it a Japanese joinery, because, I mean, it was somewhat common in Japanese woodworking, but it has been used in many other traditions. But it is a fun joint that is very showy, very flashy, and with hand tools, it is relatively simple to make. So that should be a fun one to do live. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google sunrise dovetail, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that one. So hopefully next Tuesday, my wife will be back, and that always makes the lives run so much easier. So almost done here. I'm going to do one more quick pass around. So let's go back in and make stop cut a little deeper. I'm just using the corner of this chisel and coming around that corner. And here I start to get a little too tight, so I'm going to have to switch out. Make sure we pare down and clean that out first. Having the ability to stop and not jab into the work you're working on, like that, is a good skill to learn and slowly master over years. So let's do a little bit deeper on this side. And here we're starting to get into that point of diminishing returns where you can work at this longer and longer and longer, and every time you work at it you can get it a little bit closer and a little bit closer. But there is no such thing as perfection. Perfection is a direction, not a location. Don't ever think about perfection being a location, or you will always be disappointed. For there's always something more perfect than the perfect. So now that I have a little ridge in between each of those, I'm going to come down and remove that little ridge. And you'll also notice the closer you get to being finished, the closer your face gets to the work. And the closer your face gets to the work. And suddenly you have to ask yourself, is anyone ever going to be looking this close at it? And if the answer is no, then you've done enough work. Oop, I've got to go back and change that around. Ah! Computer keeps turning off on me. Do that again. I'm really looking forward to my wife being back. Either that or hiring a videographer. One of these days. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. So let's finish this up and put it together. And I'm not going to actually do the finish on this. I'm probably going to do a quick live video later, maybe tomorrow, of actually putting the boiled linseed oil on it. Because all I'm going to do is put boiled linseed oil on paste wax, and everyone has seen that before, so I probably won't actually be doing the finishing tonight, as I want to do a little bit more detail and cleanup on this, and do a lot more of this, just cleaning up these ridges until everything gets in the way. Okay, then the last step is creating this ball, and just nipping off the corner there. Nipping off the corner there, so we just flip this gouge over and we make a mess of things. There, I think that's pretty close to what we want here. Oh yeah, I gotta clean this corner up. Put a chamfer on this edge, that's where the rope is going to come through and tie in. This basically is then a chance for this chamfer to tie in with the face. So yes, I'm going to be coming through and cleaning this up a little bit more, detailing it and making it just a little more pretty before putting finish on. But I don't think we want to do a video of doing that over and over and over again. Show us your skew, please. Actually, I don't have my skew out. Let me pull one of those out. Show you that. A skew is just a bench chisel that's on a weird angle. It allows you to get back into some of the corners, but it's also often double beveled. Most of the time it's double beveled. But yeah, here's the skew. So you can see it's basically just a bevel on this side and a bevel on this side at an angle. So it's a skewed cut. This allows you for getting into little corners and things like that. A very useful tool for detailing. But it's, I think a lot of time I'm actually using the carving knife more than the skew. But there are some times, especially with chip carving, being able to jab this in and put a little bit of pressure behind it is very useful. So a skew is a good chisel to have. One. Okay, so let's assemble this thing. If any of you guys have questions you want me to answer, go ahead and throw them in there, put a dot on there or some other way so I can see it. I'm trying to keep up with those. Failing miserably. I know it would be nice if my wife was back. I don't know what I'd do without her. Okay, let's put this thing together. Find all the right connections. There and there. Then let's put in this, and where did I put the blade? There's the blade. Oh, and I found an idea. I had a few different people telling me about how to keep this from slipping. And the best idea I've come up with, and I haven't actually had a chance to try it, I'm going to be trying it here soon, is actually to get a rubber washer and put a rubber washer on there. It puts the right tension in there. I had a couple people with a star nut. And the star nut, I don't like that because it's going to be tearing up the wood. I had a couple other ideas about gluing and other friction items, but I think the one I'm going to try is the rubber washer, so I'll be telling you how that comes. So this one turns a little bit easier than I'd like it to. And I think the rubber washer would be the exact answer I need. So let's assemble this together. Handles in, connect the blades. Oh, come on, go in. Then we'll put the string on the back, tighten the string up. Where's the string? There's the string. Put the string on here. Put in the toggle. Center out the toggle so it doesn't look horrible. And tighten it up. And because I originally sized this before cutting those scrolls in, the rope is a bit big. That's not a huge issue. I can tighten it up and make it a little bit smaller in the future. And I want to tighten it until I get that right. If you've ever tightened a bandsaw, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right about there should be about right. Let's see how that sounds. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So there we go. It is carved and pretty, and I'm looking forward to adding a little bit of finish to this. Here, let me give you a closer view of what this actually looks like. Two, and focus in. So, yeah, here you can see how the bands come into the rope here. It tightens up the toggle on here. I am really happy with how that came out. That is pretty. So I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup on here, clean off the pencil marks, the final little bits in with a card scraper. Why is there a gap there? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Got a hair of a gap here. It's like something is twisting it. And then I want to come in here with a gouge and clean these out a little bit more, smooth them out just a little bit more for detail. And we will have a really nice turning saw ready for the use. So, yes, if you want to see it working, I have a couple of the other two live videos. I have it up and running. And I had one of the questions that has come up quite a bit is, do you use it on the pull stroke or the push stroke? And the answer is whatever you feel like. If you're doing it in a bird's mouth, where you have a surface that the wood is against, you always want it on the pole stroke, so you're pulling it down into the bed of the bird's mouth. And on the bench, I find that I'm usually liking it on the push stroke, but there are some times where I want to do it on the pole stroke, and it's always good to be able to be efficient between those two. So whichever way you want to. There is no right or wrong answer. Have it on the push or the pole. Have you thought about heat finishing wood handles to clamp them onto tools, sort of like Veritas chisels? Heat finishing. I don't know what you mean by heat finishing. If you can tell me more, I'd like to know. But yeah, I don't know what you mean by heat finishing. I'm currently working with hard tropical woods, Ipe, and having a hard, no pun intended, time. Uh-oh, I gotta move it so I can actually see it. Sorry. I have a window in the way. Pull this up and over. There we go. And I'm having a hard, no pun intended, time with hand planing it perfectly. Any tips for the beginner? With a lot of Central American woods, the grain is reversing. So it basically will spiral up the tree one year and then spiral up the tree in the opposite direction the other year. And so no matter which way you're planing, you're always planing against the grain somewhere. And so you're always beating a tear out. And so because of that, usually the way I like to do it is I don't worry about tear out, and I just leave a little bit more material than I need. And I'll just plane it down to the shape I need it to be in with tear out and a mess and oh well. And then I will set up a smoothing plane. And a smoothing plane is a plane usually with a small sole, like a number 4 or number 3 or something smaller. It has a very, very tight mouth, so you're closing up the mouth as much as possible. On a traditional one, you're moving the frog forward. The iron is unbelievably sharp and incredibly ready to go. And I'll usually do like 100 strokes or so and then take it back to the strop and strop it again. Keeping it at that sharpness, sometimes maybe even 50 strokes, and then going back and sharpening it again. Because any small amount of dullness on there will make it worse. Then the other thing is the chip breaker needs to be really close. So if you're using a low angle plane that doesn't have a chip breaker, as much as you really want to do that, it's not going to treat you as well for detailed woods. Yes, you can put in a higher angle iron, but that really defeats the whole purpose of a low angle plane. Whereas if you have a traditional iron with the bevel down, a chip breaker on it, a tight mouth, extremely sharp, everything's set with a very, very fine tolerance, you're only taking off like a 1/2,000th, then you will be doing it perfectly and there won't be any tear out, theoretically. But yes, you can set up a plane for that. I do have a video if you look up how to set up a smoothing plane, I believe was the name of the video. But if you Google Wood by Wright smoothing plane, it'll be one of the top 3 or 4 videos. And it'll actually take you through how do you set up a plane with a really tight mouth, a really sharp chip breaker, and fit that all together, and you can get tear out free wood even on those hard woods. Now, general planing on hard wood is sharp iron, not taking off a heavy cut. And the moment the blade gets dull, it'll feel like it's skipping, and that's your sign that your iron isn't sharp enough. If the plane moving forward without any pressure down, if the plane moving forward skips, the blade is dull. So take it back, sharpen it again, until just pushing it forward on the wood without any pressure down will then take a curl. And that's what you have to do on those really hard, dense woods. It's really about keeping that iron sharp. And it's hard because those dense woods dull it quickly. So it's a lot of taking it back to the strop every so often and keeping it sharp. Veritas chisels are maple, but they are finished with heat, which makes them shrink onto things tightly. They look like dark exotic woods. Oh, yes, that is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's, it's going to kill me now. Thermally treated wood, yes. It's actually, there is a bit of that heat shrinking that they do on there, but it is a stable form of wood. It's actually like cooking the wood. and so that it doesn't change as much over time. It doesn't expand and contract. It makes it a very really durable wood, less prone to cracking. The wood actually acts a lot more like plastic than wood. But then they do apply a finish on over that as well, most of the time. No, I haven't done that because I don't have the capability to do that. You heat them actually in, to actually do the heat treatment, you have to heat them in an oxygen-free environment so that they don't burn up, and you have to heat them up past their temperature. And so it's often done by charcoal makers because they have oxygen-free heaters. But yeah, that's a cool material, and I've seen a lot of people actually using that for doing saw handles and things of that nature. I think another thing you may be thinking about is the process of tenon shrinking, which is very common to Windsor chair making. And what they'll actually do is they'll dry the wood out heavily. They'll put it in a heat box and raise the temperature up to like 200 degrees and basically bake the heat out of the wood, and bake the water out of the wood, heat it up, and what happens is that whole piece then shrinks as it loses its water and it heats up. And then what they can do is they can take that tenon or that spindle and slide it into the joint, and as it cools down and as it absorbs moisture from the air around it, it will expand and fit into that joint nice and tightly. And so that's a really common technique. I've done that well with Windsor chair breaking in the past, but that was a while ago. I do want to do that now. It'd be kind of fun to actually play with that live, with hand tools, doing it with a firebox. Let's see if there's any other questions. Instead of a rubber washer, to keep it from turning, have you thought about putting small grooves inside the hole or outside of the knob, sort of like teeth on a gear? Yes, you could do that, but if you put them on the brass, you're just going to end up enlarging the size of the hole. And if you put them on the wood, they're really not going to do that much to cause a difference. One of the ideas that someone said is if you take a 1/4-inch dowel and smear like silicone on it and then slide it into the hole and pull it out, you'll leave a little bit of silicone inside the hole. And so that might act as a little bit of friction, and that might work. But it might also jam up the hole and make it too hard. So we'll be playing with that, but yeah. Torrified, yes, thank you. Torrified wood, yes. Yeah, it takes, and you can do it with just about any wood. It takes the wood and makes it act like a plastic, and it's kind of a really cool surface. So it takes like any light wood. I've seen it done with maple and with cherry, and turns them into a golden dark color, almost like a mahogany. Really kind of cool. So yes, torrified wood. So unless we have any other questions, I think we're going to wrap this up. I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of you next week. So a week from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So a week from Thursday, a week from 2 days. So it'd be 9 days from now is going to be the tool sale outside in the parking lot in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And so I'm really looking forward to that. That is like the biggest tool sale of the year, is the one I like to go to and where I usually get most of my tools from. Probably 60% or greater of my tools have come from a Midwest tool collectors meet. So if you're going to be there, I would love to see you, and we'll be doing the meetup Thursday. I'll be putting an event together here soon on the Facebook page. So that's about it. I think that's about it. Oh, Tim Cheatwood asked if I can show the carving before I go. Here, I'll show it up one quick time. What we did, basically, let me grab the right side. Here we go. So we did a simple Celtic Trinity here, and then a Trinity into a little bit of a weave. Something really simple, showing how to draw that out. And then we did, where'd they go? Here, let me show you my, here. This one's my least favorite of the 4 curls that I did. And then this one is my most favorite of the 4 curls I did. Just a nice little shape. Fairly simple. I think I did these in like 5 minutes each. And tighten it all up, and we've got a saw. So this is ready for the finish, which I will be doing the finish. I may end up doing a quick live video and not posting it tomorrow sometime, of actually putting the boiled linseed oil on it. I think that might be kind of fun to let it explode. But I want to do a lot of little detail and clean up and clean things around and smooth it all out before I then hang this on the wall. And then I've got to find, uh-oh, where am I going to put it? I'll hang it here. So I hope you guys have liked this. This has been a fun series. Next time we'll be doing a sunrise dovetail, and then probably after that we're going to be doing some beginner videos with my wife, actually having her here in the shop and doing some woodworking and teaching her. I think that'll be fitting well into the live footage. So I think that's about it. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Now I got to walk all the way over there and turn this thing off. Cool. Where's the button? There's the button. See you later.